Hello, my fellow you readers, as I Dark Symphony 77, another fan fiction reading. As always, a link to the story will be in the description. Please like, subscribe. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below for your thoughts on the story, as well as any future fan fictions you want me to read or review. First off, I'd like to apologize for the quality. I left my microphone at my friend's house. Me and her were recording Spider-Man and Resident Evil 0. So, and I forgot to grab it. So it's like, I'm gonna have to deal. And also, I bet you're wondering where I am. I'm back at the house. My last video, I talked about my meltdown video. I vented, and me and my mom got into a fight, and she kicked me out of the house. And so for the 2 days after that video aired, I had to basically amount to sleeping in my car. And that was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever had to do. It was incredibly stiff. My back, at the end of it, my back hurt. I didn't get much sleep for 2.5 days. I didn't eat for 2.5 days, aside from a pair of pancakes. And I barely drank anything in 2.5 days. Plus the fact when I woke up on the first day, I was surrounded by EMTs asking me if I was either drinking or was on narcotics. So it's like, I've never been so humiliated on myself. So I sucked up my pride. I knew what I did what I had to do. And I begged my mom to let me back. And she did. And so here I am. That was just a quick update. And next, in terms of upcoming fanfiction, I want to talk about this before getting into the fanfiction. In terms of any future ideas, all I have really is another fanfiction reading, and of course, season 3 of Hercules and the Modern Girl. I'm still going through that. Everything that's been happening, I haven't been able to read as much. So there's that. So the story I'm reading is called Hungry Healer. It's written by Thomas the Betrayer, and it's a Last Story fanfiction. For those of you who don't know what Last Story is, Last Story was a game made by the creator of Final Fantasy. It was by his company. I actually just beat it last week. It was actually a pretty fun game. I loved it. And it was part of what's called Project Nightfall. Project Nightfall is bringing 3 critically acclaimed games from Japan to America. There was Pandora's Tower, Last Story, and most famously, Xenoblade Chronicles. And of course, Xenoblade Chronicles got all the love and attention because Xenoblade is a good game. But Last Story was fun. It had a lot of quirky ideas. My friend, actually, while I was fighting the last boss, my friend actually said, "This did a better last final boss than Xenoblade." He actually said that, and he beat Xenoblade Chronicles, and he loves Xenoblade a lot. He just says the last boss was a better boss. Hey, well, at least Pandora's Tower was fun too, but I soft locked myself out of it, then it broke. So I can't play it anymore unless I get it digitally downloaded. Oh, what's that? Okay, so it's a humor friendship. It stars Zale, Dagran, and Marania. Did they actually misspell? They misspelled Marania's English name, because Marania is spelled Mirania, but they forgot the second I. And oh my god, I just noticed that. It's basically how the mercenary troop you see in the game was included Marania, and so let's get. Oh, come on. Alright. A fight over tribal colors was brewing in one corner of the bar. 2 waitresses were being groped as they sought to deliver tankards of ale, while a third had resolved the same issue by denting a pewter flagon over the offender's head. They were shouting and cursing. Is the offender's head named Lowell? I want to know that. They were shouting and cursing, much sloshing of booze, and no amount of weapons already drawn. The young sword for hire Zale observed these proceedings leaning against the tavern wall. Even for mercenaries, they made for a sorry bunch. He glumly surveyed the unimpressive pickings. His own band had suffered terrible losses during that last mission. While it netted them a fair sum of coin, their numbers were reduced to himself, the team leader Dagger, and 2 others. To make matters worse, the warrior mage Lowell suffered serious injuries from dealing with enemy sorcerers. It had been nearly a week before they were even certain he was going to make it at all. Now sporting a fierce wound on his face that would undoubtedly leave a scar, the roguish ladies' man furiously brushed it off, claiming such a mark would only enhance his good looks. Sword Maiden Cyrene and have had a few salty comments to add on that topic, but Zale noted how she flinched whenever Lowell stumbled. It was obvious his continuous paleness concerned her as much as any of them. And again, Cyrene, you gotta have a few drinks. Brooding, the flaxen-haired war veteran, reflected on their current situation. In order to maintain an edge in the competitive world of sellswords, it was necessary that they sniff out some new recruits. This was made all the harder by Dagran's low tolerance for anyone he considered untrustworthy. The betrayal at the hands of Zoran still rankled, and Dagran was not disposed to forgiveness under normal circumstances. Concerning what he was seeing now, it might prove difficult, if not impossible, to locate even one candidate who could pass muster. Speaking of the mercenary captain, Zale caught sight of him conversing with a man seated at the bar. They exchanged handshakes, and the patron went back to his drink while Dagran slipped through the crowd to rejoin his longtime colleague. To Zale's surprise, there was a smile on the older man's face, and a gleam in his topaz eyes, which bespoke of good findings. Finding good, maybe. The dark-haired merc had the look of a tiger sighting lone prey, and he clapped a hand on Zale's shoulder. Come on, let's get out of here. I'll explain on the way. The 2 men left the pub and came out into the bright sunlight that still carried the smell of rain on hot cobblestones. At once they were caught up in the swell of passerby that thronged. Never mind. I don't even know if that's a word or not. Now I gotta tell that. Streets of this busy burg. Their progress was smooth, almost as most townsfolk took note of their prominently displayed weapons and took heed to give them a wide berth. As they hurried on by, Zale could appreciate the gesture, but remained all too aware of some nervous glances and outright nasty glares that came with it. No matter where you went nowadays, mercenaries suffered a bad reputation. Well, until Zale meets Callista. Feeling self-conscious, he sought to make as little disturbance as possible while keeping on their course. I caught a whiff of something interesting back there. Dagger threw over his shoulder as he strode confidently down the street, a proud wolf among sheep. If he bothered to notice the looks they were being given, it didn't bother him in the least. Rumor has it there's a healer up for grabs in this town. A healer? For real? Zale neatly came to a halt, making several people bump into him. He hurried to catch up. This news came as a shock. Dagger had made efforts to try and coax some magicians away from the other parties in the past. Lowell joined them through his persuasive powers. It was true, but to a man they all closed ranks when it came to the healers. Things nearly got ugly on more than one occasion. No surprise there. Okay, then have Lowell learn spells. Considering how dangerous mercenary work could be. Any party that counted a healer amongst its members could thank their lucky stars. If they had, oh my god, this chair is uncomfortable when you're leaning and this part's like digging into my legs is annoying. If they had one during that last skirmish, things might have gone very differently. And now to find there was a free agent available, this could be just the break their company needed. We should hurry, he insisted upon rejoining Dagran. Once word of the spirits, I'm sure every band in need will come sniffing around. Not to worry, his friend remarked. From what I hear, she's been about... she's been around town for nearly 3 weeks and hasn't joined a new party. We can take our time with this one and get a good idea how to proceed. 3 weeks? Zale sidestepped a puddle of something that definitely wasn't rainwater. Odd enough it to learn the target was a woman, but why would such a valuable commodity be on market for that length of time? Normally people in their line of work spared no expenses when it came to recruiting a healer. Was her last party wiped out or something, Zale asked? That would indicate the mage's talents were not up to par and they might want to reconsider letting her join. I know what you're thinking, and that's not it. She's quite skilled if the rumors are true. It seems a lot of the folks around town have benefited as a result. No, it seems she left her last unit or was asked to leave, something like that. A good fortune either way. Yeah, at least we can make a competitive bid. Minus the cost of treating Lowell's injuries, they still had a tidy sum set aside. Good thing that job paid... Sorry, I got distracted a little bit. Good thing that last job paid so well. Even if it was hardly worth the cost, Dagran spoke as if reading his mind again. The girl in the market offered her services to anyone in need. Let's get a move on. In no time, they reached the bustling commercial center of this busy port. It was... You know what? I'm going to sit down on the... I'm sorry, it's just really uncomfortable and digging in my legs a lot. It's just really uncomfortable. In no time, they reached the bustling commercial center of this busy port. It was midday, which means the stalls were packed. Enough could be had for sale here, from food and weapons to those seeking to hire protection for caravans. Dagron spoke to a few sellers hawking their wares, and soon enough, he had gleaned an idea of where to go. The trip then took him to an area at the end of the street where a small crowd had gathered around a table set up against a building. Now be sure to take this one. Marania has like a weird voice. She speaks like has a nasally, very soft-spoken voice. Like really, it's really awkward to do. Now be sure to take this only twice a day with tea. Otherwise, you're asking for a stomachache. I think I'm not being heard. I probably won't be heard if I'm doing Marania's voice. Thank you, miss. Thank you all so much. Rather than joining the press, Dagron and Zale slipped off to the side and leaned against a wall to get a better view of the prospects. What they saw left them both surprised. Having expected a seasoned sort of character, tough and used to the pursuit's harsh life, they instead found themselves looking at a girl younger than either of them. She was small, dressed in soft leathers dyed shades of purple, white, and green. A dagger sheathed at her belt glowed slightly from some enchantments. Long, shiny black hair was tied up in a bun at the back of her head, held in place by ribbons bedecked, another weird word, with white feathers and a single large pale flower. Two long forelocks framed on either side of her smooth features. There was an elvish quality about the young woman, with heavy-lidded eyes and a beguiling expression, both reserved and thoughtful. Her dark eyes were calm, carrying no sign of the jaded outlook one would expect a mercenary of any stripe. Taking a cue from Dagron, Zale watched the young woman work for 10 minutes. In that time, she dispensed remedies, diagnosed the illness, offered advice, and generally made her clients feel at ease. Delicate fingers took the hands of rough-hewn labormen and anxious mothers without regard of the station. Her soothing voice and air of wisdom... What soothing voice? She talks like this. Zale, we have to stop Dagron. He took Zangarak's arm, and now he wants to destroy everything. With commendable skill... Oh, wait, where was I? Her soothing voice and air of wisdom served as well as any tincture or powder that came from those assured hands. She was like some mysterious forest sprite emerging from the bole of a tree. Zale was quick to note how her clients went away smiling and lighthearted when only moments before they had been beset by anxiety. Admirable as this may be, what interests them more than any panacea was the display of magic put on. With commendable skill, the pale pixie... I don't think pixie is spelled like that. Let me, I want to look at this one. Pixie, P-I-X-Y. Or is it like, is it an actual word? That'd be cool if it. Definition. Oh, wait. God dang it! No, I looked up stock for that. Now, pixie. Oh, it is. It is actually a word. I didn't know that. Oh, it's short for pixie. Okay, short for the other. I did not know that. Huh. I didn't know that. Conjured a white healing circle around herself to treat people suffering from injuries that range from burns to broken bones and open wounds. After just a few seconds, those afflicted with lesions and limps walked away completely cured, a spring in their step and no trace to mark their having ever been hurt to begin with. Dagron and Zale exchanged a look, clearly impressed. Both were eager to begin the negotiations. Still, they waited, not wanting to interrupt the proceedings. An opening would come. As he watched, Zale in particular couldn't help but notice how most of the townsfolk paid their benefactor in foodstuffs ranging from fresh-baked bread to farm-grown eggs. A trifle odd even for peasants, considering how preposterous this place seemed to be. Still, he knew what it was like in small hamlets, bartering for goods and services as a way of life. But they had solid coin to offer, and that must surely be something. At last, a bell tolled from the nearby church. As if taking this for a sign, the enchantress rose from her seat. The patients dispersed for the most part, some heading off to conduct their business, while those more seriously afflicted settled around the street to wait. In a flash, Dagron and Zale had crossed the distance between them. The healer looked up at their approach. Pardon me this. The sales captain spoke. My name is Dagron. This is Zale. We're the heads of a mercenary company passing through these parts. We understand that you're currently not afflicted with any group, and thought that to see that if you might be convinced to throw in your lot with us. No expression passed over the healer's face as she looked between them, because she's like... Well, then again, like... No, Cyrene has a lot of expression, especially for a drunken pseudo-Irish woman who likes to wear orange. I make her wear orange! Because she kind of looks like she would wear orange. As if taking this for a sign the... Oh, wait, I've already said that. We understand that you're currently not afflicted with any group, and thought to see if you might be convinced to throw in your lot with us. No expression passed over the healer's face as she looked between them. Her tranquil gray eyes seemed to absorb their faces, causing Zale to shift uncomfortably, while beside him Dagron maintained a relaxed smile. Then she inclined her head. Mirania, pleased to meet you both. She then went about dividing various portions and foodstuffs into two separate sacks, one of which was much larger than the other. I'm about to have lunch. Can I speak after I'm done? Of course, Dagron's sharp eye was quick to perceive what might be an opening. But since that's the case, perhaps we could treat you to a meal, and in return you might lend an ear to our proposal. Mirania paused, a gurgling groan coming from somewhere hereabouts. Zane glanced at her, around her, but could see no sign of its source. As he did, the graceful hero stood up to address them. I don't see why not. Shall we get going? Excellent. Dagron turned to his companion. Zale, why don't you carry that big sack? Let it get the trouble light. Be glad to. Always willing to help. The fresh-faced mercenary hoisted up the bag, brimming with edible goods. Mirania declined Dagron's offer to carry the tools of her trade, and together they went off in search of the nearest inn. So you see, cut. So you see, our goal is, are you planning to finish it? That's completely out of nowhere. I have to talk to you about this. Rabble. Can I have your bacon? Can you finish that bacon? Sure. Rabble. What? Dagron looked down at his plate, then back at Mirania sitting across from him. No, help yourself. She did so, reaching over to spear the strips with her fork and proceeded to tuck in. Dagron glanced at Zale and raised an eyebrow, who shrugged in return. He then launched back into his pitch. It's Nighthorn was aiming for, a secure, comfortable position in the service of the Lord. But reaching that goal is no small task, to say nothing of getting there alive. Mirania didn't look up from her plate as he spoke. They had been at the inn for 10 minutes, and in that time she had consumed a brace of roast quails, 2 rashers of bacon, 3 servings of fried potatoes, and 2 loaves of bread. Holy goddamn! That's a lot of food. And she looks like that in game. Where is she packing on her in her ass and thighs? Ass. And 2 loaves of bread hollowed out and filled with chunky soup. It wasn't like she scarfed it down. The elephant girl had impeccable table manners. Apparently, hearing folks just made one ravenously hungry. This was rather impressive in its own right. The 2 men hardly had a nibble of their own orders, and that time, Zale was content to let Dagron do the talking while he watched this display of appetite for force. Where did she put it all? I don't know. In her thighs? Again, in her thighs and her butt. A solid. Okay, so I was trying to figure out who's saying this. Okay, a solid run these past few years, but we need to up our game. If we're to garner any sort of recognition, it have to be on the battlefield. There's always conflict brewing with the land dying. Fallen is becoming more precious by the day. At this rate, it won't be long before the Empire can properly feed itself. Across from them, Mirania popped a last bit of roast duck into her mouth and chewed with dainty fingertips covering her lips. I understand. It's a bad situation all around. You might say the state of the land is what brought me here to begin with. I mean, if you ever played the game, Mirania is kind of the exposition fairy. She's the one who kind of connects all the dots and everything. So it kind of makes sense. As she spoke, her eyes drifted down to linger on Zale's virtually untouched place. Beside him, Dagron gave a gentle nudge with one elbow. Recognizing this sign, he pushed his meal forward and said a trifle live. Here, Mirania, you can have mine. I'm not feeling hungry. Thank you, Zale. The charming Enigma offered him a fond smile as she reached over to accept his offer. Surreptitiously. I can't pronounce that word. Surreptitiously. I know it's a real word, but I just can never pronounce it. Surreptitiously. That's the best I could do with that. Zale snuck a roll off Dagron's platter, who granted him this much before continuing. We can offer you protection and share the profits. If you agree, you'll be one of us. There is no top-down hierarchy in our group. We all have roles to play until you betray them. We remain as equals. Everyone has their say in what direction the party should proceed, and whether a road might be too dangerous. I'll bear the safety of the group foremost in mind when I conduct negotiations with any clients. You can think of it as joining a family. Not all of us get along, but we stick together. Nothing's more important. The pervasive rogue leaned back in his chair and crossed his arm with a faint smile. So that sounded like something you care to be a part of. In the time Daggerin took to finish, Marani had already polished off her plate and attacked his own. At last, she stopped. Taking a deep breath, the clear-eyed mage looked between them. Neither mercenary had a clue what she might be thinking, except possibly whether more food might be coming. I believe there's good prospects to be had with you. All right, count me in. I'm glad to hear it. Welcome aboard. They all stood up. Daggerin went to pay their bill, and Zale moved over to stand by Marania. I can't promise you it'll be easy, he said with a subdued smile. Some of the current crew are a bit rough around the edges. Siren! Still, they got good hearts. I'm sure you'll like them when you get to know each other. I look forward to it. Let's see. So right now it's Zale, Daggerin, Loel, Cyrene, and now Marania, which means the other Kurik. I believe that's the name. I believe that's the name, Kurik. Last story. No, I can't. Last story characters. Sorry, there. Yurik. So at this point in the game, at this point in the timeline, and this guy's story, Yurik hasn't joined yet. Why am I saying Yurik? Alright, so okay. I was here. I look forward to it. Marania hosted her small bath and medical supplies over one shoulder. Shall we be off then? Of course, here, let me get... Zale hesitated, glancing behind her. Wasn't there another sack? Marania looked down at the floor with a deflated mass of cloth laid. One pale lavender boot nudged this empty mass out of sight beneath the table. No. Oh my god! Seriously! Seriously, how much does this chick eat? I gotta get rid of the beard. Sorry for getting off topic, but I just don't like the beard. She stated confidently before proceeding out the door. Wearing a befuddled look, Zale can only follow after. When they got back to the inn, Cyrene came rushing up to tell them that Lohot collapsed. The Spitfire redhead proved frantic. While willing and able to risk her life in battle against any number of opponents, she was beside herself at the prospect of an enemy against whom her skills were of no avail. Yeah, Cyrene's skills basically boil down to drink a lot and whack stuff. Daggerin tried to calm her, and she nearly bit his head off in a rage. While he attempted to soothe her fury, Marania wasted no time in having Zale lead her to their injured man. Standing anxiously by the door, he watched as the mystic knelt by Lowell's bedside. The bandages around his neck were red with blood again. Marania took them off, examined the wound, and proceeded to cast the magic circle. Cyrene and Daggerin had rejoined them by this point, and for several heart-pounding seconds they could only watch. Then Lowell's eyes drifted open. He blinked up at the ceiling before turning to spy the beautiful young maiden beside him. I never imagined the angel of death looked so lovely, he said, and gave her a wink. In return, Marania just smiled and stood up to address his companions. He'll be all right now. He has a strong constitution and a healthy heart. There shouldn't be... The rest was cut off when Cyrene shot over and wrapped her in a fierce like, I don't know who you are, she exclaimed with a shaky laugh, but I know you'll never be short of a drink while I'm around. And that's a fact! Introductions proceeded at pace, and much ado was made over their newfound partner. Afterwards, they left Lowell to get some rest. Cyrene made good on her promise and went about buying Marania some choice beverages. Of course, this included a round for herself, and in no time, their boisterous comrade was leading to a rousy body chant amongst the other patrons. Standing atop a table and spinning merrily around, she laughed with delight and kicked up her heels in a dance. The soft-spoken healer then had retired to an empty table where she looked on with a smile, clapping her hands with the rest, but drinking only moderately. About half an hour later, Zale felt a hand on his shoulder and was surprised when he turned around to see Lowell up and about. Lowell, what are you doing out of bed? This surprises you? His ally grinned jauntily and snagged a sausage and a bun off a passing waitress tray before taking a hearty bite. Come on, lad. I'm talking to a trampling fighter here. Nothing keeps the gallant lord down for long. It was true that his wound had completely closed up, so it was now only a smooth diamond of scar tissue, and the color had returned to his cheeks for the first time in a week. But Zale remained concerned. Alright, but still, you shouldn't be up and about. Marania said a good night's rest is essential for recovery. Exactly why I'm here. You don't expect me to spend the night alone in my reconstruction, do you? The bright blue eyes drifted over the rowdy merrymaking. And where's the bonny lass who healed my broken body? A presentiment of danger passed up the other man's spine. Careful, Lowell, he warned. She only just joined up. Don't go scaring her off already. Wouldn't dream of it. I'll be just fine. His gaze alighted on Marania, and giving Zale's shoulder a hearty squeeze, he whispered, "So long as Cyrene doesn't find out." Sir, I bet you Cyrene's gonna find out, because reasons. He then headed off to greet her. Those words of assurance did nothing to lessen Zale's discomfort. Taking it upon himself as co-founder of the band, he trailed at a distance behind to keep an eye on things in case they got out of hand. As such, he caught the first salvo when Lowell drew up to where Marania sat. You know, in all the stories, the Sleeping Beauty is awoken with a kiss by the rescuer. He said in a teasing tone, "Hello, Lowell." Marania looked at him. Almost immediately, however, her eyes drifted down to the bun he held. His thick sausage covered in fried onions and dripping with juices. I see you're feeling better. Oh my god. All thanks to you, my darling. His words poured off his warrior poet's tongue with the natural grace of a flowing stream. Zale couldn't help but be impressed by his dedication even in the face of near death. So tell me, what's a lovely lady such as yourself doing in the company of riffraff like this? He gestured out with his foot long at the crowd. Do you include yourself in that assessment? No! Marania was clearly paying attention to what he said, but all her attention seemed fixated on the sausage, following his every movement with utmost intensity. Lowell chuckled, dipping his head, and he put one foot up on the bench next to her and leaned on it to draw closer. But being honest, there's a part of me that responds to such debauch carrying on, but only a small part. His voice dropped to a husky rumble. I'm much more interested in the softer side of entertainment. If you catch my drift. He proceeded to flash a merry wink before taking a bite of his sausage. Or rather, he tried to, because it was only then Lowell seemed to notice. Well, you got burned by whatever Marania is. Like, it's like hard to very describe Marania. You can describe every other character relatively easy, but it's like Marania is like poof. He's like, she acts high, but she's not high. But she also looks like she's high, but she's not really high. But, and you know, she knows everything. And she helps us with the lore of the game. So let me continue. Zale stared, so did Lowell. Both weren't quite certain what had just happened. Marania took the sausage. It's pretty obvious. But when the ice wizard looked up, it was to find Marania chewing with fingers precisely to her lips. Before he could react, she swallowed and stood up. I'm glad to find you in such high spirits, Lowell. Would you excuse me? I believe Cyrene might need some help getting down. He looked at her and then back down in his hand, fingers flexing experimentally. Yeah, fine. I'll see you later. Marania drifted off with furrowed brow. Lowell continued to stare in puzzlement as his absent meal, I'm butchering the sentence. Mouth moving silently on questions that never quite seemed to get out. Meanwhile, Zale was beginning to suspect there was more to the new ally than meets the eye. Oh no, dar! Zale stood on tiptoes and craned his head desperately enough to see over the press. There was an arena fight going on today, which meant a lot of people out and about. He finally spied what he was looking for and shoved his way through, ignoring the bitter curses that resulted. Dagrin! The handsome fire turned his head. Zale, what's up? His words were nonchalant. Anyone listening will never guess that the mercenary's strong hands were now locked around the throat of a merchant, who struggled and kicked futilely atop his stall table. Zale peeled at the man's purple face and bulging eyes. Dagrin took note and wasted no time explaining. This blighter tried to sell me some eggs at $2.30 apiece, when everyone knows the average price around town is $2.20. He turned back to the preceding strangulation, eyes narrowing and lips curling into any faint snarl. No one takes advantage of me. Glancing nervously about, Zale noticed the other vendors and passerby were steadfastly ignoring what was taking place. Even the town guards didn't seem interested in investigating a potential murder right in their midst. He knew full well how poorly Dagrin reacted to anything that smacked of betrayal. At times like this, it was best not to get in his way. Then again, he's a freaking hypocrite in the game. Hey! Was there something you needed, Zale? Daggerin had flung the poor man to the ground and was now kicking him viciously in the stomach. Holding onto the table for better leverage, pot and crates rattled with every methodical blow. The whole time his expression didn't so much as flicker. Thump. Thump. Recalling his reason for being here, his cohort produced a piece of vellum with writing on it. Here. Daggerin raised an inquiring brow while never leaving off putting the boot in, but took the sheet all the same. It proved to be a tavern meal receipt. He expected the figures for remarking. It's a bit steep. But with the 3 men we added yesterday, especially that Biggins character, that's to be expected. No need to get all worked up. He handed the receipt back before returning to his handiwork. What's the trouble? You don't understand. That's not for the whole crew. Zale protested as he took it back. Morania. What? Dagger said with a laugh. You're joking. The look on his friend's face caused him to finally stop beating his victim. He blinked in his face, saying, amazing. You're not joking. Dagger snatched the scrap of paper back and looked it over once more. He studied the sums laid out, checking to make sure there were no mistaken calculations. The merchant on the ground groaned, and without looking, he kicked him once again for emphasis. Pipe down, you! At which the poor fellow shut up. After having satisfied himself that there was no chicanery involved as far as mathematics went, the leader of the war band gave his partner a troubled look. Well, I guess we'll have to just eat it. Zale couldn't tell if that was intended as a joke or not. Anything for a healer. But why me? You got the best report with her, that's why. Daggerin slumped on a stool wearing a pained frown. The others all joined after her. Which is why they might not be perceived as having the necessary authority. Coming from me, it sounds like an order, which I prefer to avoid. Excuse me, Lau wouldn't be able to stop flirting with her long enough to remember why he was there, and Cyrene, he hesitated, glancing over to where their cheerful Valkyrie was passed out drunk on a bench before looking back. Same problem. Zale didn't know if he wanted to know what that meant. It was true for the last 3 months they hadn't lost a single man, in large part due to Morania, and not for lack of dangerous assignments. Work was easy to find thanks to discontent growing fast in the Empire, just as Daggerin had predicted. By all rights, they should be flush with cash after several successful campaigns. Instead, they were staring into the brink of financial ruin. When she's not reading, she's eating, Daggerin spoke in dark terms. When she's not eating, she's sleeping. And when she's not sleeping, she's eating again! He clenched a quivering fist in an effort to master his exasperation, heaving a tired sigh. Look, Zale, just talk to her. You're good girls. They respond to you. You're not perceived as a threat, so get over there and ask her nicely to put a cork in it! Flinching at his comrade's obvious wrath, Zale managed a miserable nod. He crossed the communal area of the tavern they were currently frequenting until he stood before the target of this mission. Zale coughed to get her attention. Morania, can I, have a word? The girl looked up from the book she had been engrossing. Yes, Zale. Is dinner ready? No, that is, closing his eyes, he took a deep breath to steel himself. Just start off easily. Don't act cross. Explain the situation and let her know we still support her no matter what. There's something important we have to discuss, and it can't wait any longer. Certainly. The healer placed a ribbon between the pages of her book and set it beside her. Please continue. Right. So it's like this. Zale's attention drifted about the tap room uncomfortably. Almost at once he locked eyes with Daggerin, who frowned and made a motion urging him on. The thing is, Morania, you know we're thrilled to have you in the party, right? She smiled in response. I never regretted joining once, if you're wondering. Good, that's good. The thing is, I'm trying to say... Zale, take a deep breath and just tell me what's troubling you. I'm more than happy to help. He did so. Perhaps her calming presence served him even for something like this. Feeling far more relaxed, he looked down at her and said simply, Morania, you need to stop eating so much. She blinked. Oh. Understatement of the year. But nothing more came to her. She pressed on. I'm not saying it's a problem, but, well, actually, that is what I'm saying. Your food bill is cutting into our expenses far more than anything else. If you could just learn to recognize when you're going overboard and stop, Even if you don't feel quite full, that would be a huge help. I know I never broached the subject before, so this might come off as out of the blue. But if there's a reason you feel so hungry all the time, like it's part of your magic, then I'm more than happy to help you find another way to, Zale. Zale, I can't believe you would say that to me. He drew back frantically, glancing frantically about the house. What? Marania looked up at him with tears in her eyes. He had never seen her in such a state of distress. And all the time we worked together, the sailor sobbed. Have I ever once treated you partly? Healed a wound just halfway? Stopped you before you were completely well again? Have I ever done that to you, Zale? Well, I mean, his jaw worked up and down in desperation. No, I haven't. Marania snipped and wiped at her cheeks with tiny palms. I always give it my all. I never do you the service or not. You're my teammate, Zale, and I value you too much to ever put your life in jeopardy. When it was within my power to prevent it. Your safety means everything to me. Just the thought of you bleeding out on the battlefield because I neglected my duty. And didn't stop until you were fully well. Simply. She then covered her face with her hands and began weeping softly. Marania! Zale fell to his knees and gripped her shoulder. Please forgive me. I value you too. I never want you to feel as though you shouldn't be at your best around us. So please, eat us all. God dang it, Zale! Zale! God dang, you fell for the obvious. Come on, man! That was obviously a trick! Oh my god, that's... Words escape me how big a fail that is. Thank you, Zale. You're so kind. With that, Marania picked up her book and started reading. Face serene as a cloudless sky. Let me know when it's time for supper. Okay. Feeling somewhat dazed, the young merc stood up and tottered off. A sense of profound disorientation had settled over him in the last few seconds, as though he had been hit with a dazed weapon. He shook his head and looked all about for some assistance, only to find Daggerin glaring at him. You idiot. Daggerin, you should have took 2 pieces of bread, put him on his face, and what are you? What? You're an idiot. I'm an idiot? You're an idiot what? An idiot sandwich? An idiot sandwich, yes! And started off in disgust. Daggerin and Zale's party made camp for the night in a fringe of cypress and elm trees not far from the latest battlefield. The fighting these last 2 weeks was intense. The 3 local barons had gone to the mat over disputed grazing rates. The Empire hadn't officially interceded yet, which only served to leave the prickly vassals spoiling for a fight even more. Open warfare was all but a certainty at this point. For the time being, it had been restricted to proxy fighting, which meant mercenary bands like theirs were in high demand. As night fell, Zale moved through their camp, conversing with his fellows and offering what encouragement he could. They numbered 12 strong now. While certainly not the biggest party in play, their team had earned a reputation for smart fighting and solid results. Daggerin was pleased by this, and he assured Zale the bloodshed brought them one step closer towards earning their knighthoods. Their sustained fighting served another purpose. Rumors from the south spoke of skirmishes and armed reptive bands, and there was even talk of the Gurak Empire making trouble again. So for now, they were best served by sharpening their skills in preparation for when a major conflict began. Another unforeseen advantage of being out in the field this long, no access to markets, which meant Marania couldn't drain their funds. Hunting, fishing, and foraging had been their only means of sustenance for a fortnight. The mysterious healer hadn't complained once the whole time they had been out here. In fact, she seemed admirably suited to surviving in the wild. Another surprise. Good thing, too, considering how sparse the pickings were nowadays. The very ground under his foot looked crumbly and pale, like soil had been overfarmed without rest. No one knew more about identifying edible plants and herbs or tracking wild animals than Marania. She really was a bundle of quiet mystery. Good thing, too. Lowell joked that if they couldn't find steady access to food out here, she was as liable to eat them as anything. They all had a good laugh at this. Lately, however, Zale found himself awoken by a strange groaning sound in the night that saw him reaching for his weapon. He tried to tell himself it was nothing, but at times he caught Marania staring at him while he was eating and licking her lips. It made him shiver. I don't know if a entirely mute, soft-spoken girl who has a habit of eating a lot looks at someone and starts licking their lips. You know something's going to go down. A little truth to that, okay? Dagran had laughed when he told him about this. Night settled in, and the stars shone down. Their fires cast an orange glow over the landscape. Having seen to his satisfaction that the perimeter was secure and the men were settled, Zale went looking for Dagran and found him leaning against a tree away from the two main fire pits their team had dug. Keep burping. Dagran. His old friend didn't respond, merely gazed intently ahead. Zale looked in the same direction. A few yards off, Marania, of course, had her own personal blaze going over which she was roasting the limitless bulk of what looked like a large boar. This she blasted carefully with a homemade marinade whilst turning a spit. The area was filled with the aroma of savory meat. There was no question of sharing. Everyone agreed that anything Marania caught herself she earned. But she's gonna eat an entire boar! I'm trying to picture that out. I'm trying to picture something like the Tasmanian Devil, or Paris Fries from My Little Pony, or Pinkie Pie. Let's just go Pinkie Pie, or something. I don't know. That's all I got. But seeing this little soft-spoken healer eat a gigantic boar is just what? Zale tried again. Dagran. Oh, wait. I want to check my time. Alright, 41 minutes. Where does she put it all? The lean fighter mused, rubbing a hand against his bearded chin. He broke out of his reverie and seemed to notice Zale. Oh, hey. Had a chance to look around. Yeah, we're good. Zale rested an arm against the young cypress and studied the dancing flames. Sentries are up and we all know our shifts. I got first watch. He patted the crossbow slung at his hip. No chance we'll be taken unawares. Nice. Their leader grunted and pushed off from his rest. Still, stay sharp. There's no moon tonight, and no honor among thieves. So we might be attacked before dawn. Make sure your replacements are well rested. Be sure someone's covering Marani at all times. Zale could appreciate his partner's caution now more than ever. Everyone's tired, but thanks to her, we're not going to go to bed hungry at least. I doubt the same could be said for the other mercmans in the area. I know what you mean, Dagran nodded. We really owe her. It was better fortune I ever dreamed us running into each other. Despite some unexpected hitches Zale threw in, they both chuckled. A ways off, Marania tucked happily into a rack of steaming ribs, blowing on them and nibbling vigorously. The co-captains watched with a measure of bemused affection. Have you ever seen anybody eat that much in their life? Dagran suddenly asked. No, Zale admitted. I mean, where did she even find a boar? The most we've seen was squirrels and the occasional pheasant. Logic! She found the boar through logic! Leave her to Marania, his partner lifted both hands to heaven in an expression of surrender and turned around. She's got a nose for these things. I'll say. Oops, bushes. Zale took up step beside him. Can you imagine what would have happened if we couldn't find any food out here? She really might eat one of us. They looked at one another, then back at Marania. Both laughed again, a trifle weakly, before turning back to the camp. As they did, one of their men looked up from his place by the fire. Hey! Any of you lost some bigots lately? Zale and Dagran both froze and missed up. Biggins? Where are ya? You fat bastard! Get your thick meaty ass out here, man! We got a game moving! As their camera continued to shout, the two co-captains turned slowly around back to where Marania sat. They stared at the huge headless carcass blackening on a spit, grease and juices dripping off it, causing the fire to snap loudly. Despite the warmth of the eating, both had broken out in a cold sweat. Dagran. Don't say it. Dagran, she ate him. She ate Biggins. Blast Zale. Be quiet. Dagran snarled, shaking as if he hadn't since his first campaign. Get a hold of yourself before you start a panic. But she ate him. The younger man protested, his eyes wide and face ashen with horror. Marania continued to take dainty bites of meat while tossing red bones over her shoulder, unconcerned with the uproar happening nearby. She cooked him and ate him like a witch in a fairy tale. Unsheathing her knife, Marania began carving more meat off the carcass. Zale felt his gorge rise at the sight. Biggins! She ate him, I tell you! Zale, shut up! Biggins! Say something, man! Quit your barking! Into the circle of firelight strode a hefty figure hoisting up his breeches. Can't take a crap in the woods and face. You bring every fighter with him hunger leagues down on us without your hollering. The argument continued for a while before dying down. Meanwhile, Dagran and Zale had both nearly collapsed in relief, feeling more spent than after having gone the whole day in pitched battle. The shaky bears supported one another back to join the others. Serene took one look and offered them each a drink. which they accepted with such alacrity, even she was taken aback. Marania continued to happily eat her catch, seemingly unaware of what had taken place. Sorry. So it's not that funny, but it's funny enough to get me to laugh. The young fire mage Yurik sat across the table from his potential employer. Okay, now we're getting Yurik, which means sooner or later the actual story is gonna. I bet you the story's gonna end with the start of the game. The young fire mage Yurik sat across the table from his potential employer with arms crossed and a frown over his face. While boasting an excellent reputation as far as mercenaries went, there was definitely something off about this band. It wasn't just the fact that over half their crew had quit on them recently and gone on to join other groups. His own eye darted from one face to another. They were fairly tolerable, but to a man it all seemed hungry was perhaps the best word. I have just one more question for you. Their leader Dagron spoke in low tones. He snapped his fingers, and Yurik jumped as a large, steaming hunk of blackened deer haunch was dropped in front of him. He looked up at the fair-haired fellow they called Zale, who had a haunted look about him. Can you finish all this in 2 minutes? Miranda had done that spooked. Oh god! Honestly, that joke wouldn't be funny unless you actually played the game. If you actually if you read the rest of the story and played the game to yourself, this wouldn't make any sense at all. But since I played the game, I beat the game, and I read the story, it's hilarious. Oh god damn it! The spindly youth narrowed his single eye, judging the sheer amount of meat before him, then looked up and declared, "Are you trying to kill me?" Through his very real consternation, the mercenaries captain broke off in a rhythm. "You're hired!" He said. Dagger stood and left with Zale, leaving Yurik very nonplussed. Excuse me, I gotta finish that. He looked behind him to where the pallid healer ghost sat cross-legged on a bench opposite. With a shrug, Yurik picked up the tray and held it out for her. "Help yourself." "Thank you very much." An hour later, Mirania was reading by the window when Dagger came up to join her. "What have you got there?" he asked curiously. "Something from the local library." She held it up for his inspection, and the sellsword captain leafed through the pages, lip quirking at what he found there. It's an ancient treatise on the hypothetical causes of the land's decay. Nothing concrete, but several sources point to Lazula's island as holding answers. Mirania couldn't hide the hope in her voice when she spoke next. "Since it's one of the options you mentioned earlier for potential clients, I was hoping this might help decide on an escort." I called it. The end of this day is going to be setting up the events of the game. Okay, makes sense. Lazula's island, eh? He rubbed his chin. "There's trouble in those parts. We might head down that way, as it were. Anything here we should be concerned about?" He handed the book back, and she opened it once more and spread it on the windowsill. "I shouldn't think so. This information is rather dated and not concerned with travelers." Mirania flipped a page, concentrated on a certain drawings and arcane inscriptions. "It does refer to an ancient power that's hidden here. The translation is a bit foggy. It looks like beyonder." Dagger leaned over her shoulder, more like outsider, I think. Mirania studied the samples more closely. "That could be it. You're surprisingly well versed, Dagger." Thanks. The way he said that made her look up. However, right then her nose registered the scent of blackberry cobbler, and immediately her head swung to focus on a cook bringing out one in the oven. In doing so, she completely missed the far hungrier look that had retreated from Dagron's face, swift as a spider. Her teammate spied the source of her fixation and laughed. "Oh, really, Mirania? Thanks. You helped out a lot. We couldn't have made this far without you. I'm truly glad you're with us." "So am I," she replied without looking at him. Dagger went and brought her the whole cobbler. Like a true friend, Mirania knew for certain that she would never find better people than these. So that's Hungry Heal. That's actually a really good story. I wouldn't actually. What was the genres? It was a humor friend. The only complaint I would have is I wouldn't really call this a humor story. First off, there's only really 2 jokes that are kind of funny. Plus the fact this is more of a friendship story with them, meeting Mirania and having to deal with her and having her grow on them. I would say this is a very good story. I didn't see any grammar errors. There was the part where when they're hiring Yurik, and they said, "Can you finish that?" and that's still funny. I think this is a very good story. I just think it could do without the humor tag. Honestly, I think if I had to do genre, maybe let's see what genres. Nope, wrong one. That's characters. Maybe. No, I can't really think besides friendship. I think this would just be a friendship story, and friendship in general, maybe. But that would be the only thing I could think of. This is actually very good. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like the greatest story. Before a short story that's around 7,000 words, it's actually very, very good. On a scale of 1 to 5, I would actually give this a 5. It kept the charm. It laid out the groundwork of how they met Marania and kept it, in the world that last story is in. It made a lot of sense. It's not the greatest story, but for a short story, it's very good. I like the whole fact they played on the fact, Marania is a big eater. She eats a lot in the actual game. Yet the fact you don't see her eating. Yet if you actually talk to her at certain points of the game, she mentions that she not only her but Dagrin and Lowell, they mention that Marania will eat a lot. So that makes sense. Like Cyrene drinks a lot. Everything about it was just immaculate. I literally have no complaints besides, literally just, if the only complaint I have is the tag is not, if the story is not really funny enough to warrant a humor tag, then you have a good story. And I would actually recommend this. If you're a fan of Last Story, you either have to watch the game or you have to play the game. Because a lot of the stuff that you read in the story, it's not going to make sense unless you actually play the game or watch gameplay. But that's my review on Hungry Hungry Healer. I think it's a very good story. And I will see you next time on my fanfiction ratings. This has been Dark Symphony 777, and